If you could please turn to page 24, we're going to go ahead and take some notes about the distributive property. The distributive property is what we need to use when we have a product that involves more than one term. So I'm going to talk about this A times the quantity B plus C. Notice, since we have a sum that we are multiplying to, then that sum is in parentheses, okay? What operation is in between A and the parentheses, okay? There's multiplication right there, we just don't see it. So what we're going to do, we're going to remember that we have multiplication right here, and we need to take A times B and A times C, keeping still the addition in between. Okay. Same thing is going to happen if we have a number multiplied to a difference. Over here, notice how we have B minus C in parentheses. Okay. We know that there is multiplication here in between A and the parentheses. So we are going to distribute A times B, A times C, and we're going to keep the subtraction in between. Okay. So what does that look like? I'm going to zoom in here and we're going to look at example 1 together. Notice how I have 4 times the quantity x plus 9. So we are going to remember that this means times when there's nothing in between 4 and the parentheses. We need to take 4 times x. We need to take 4 times 9, and we're going to keep that addition in between. Now, 4 times x, we are just going to write as 4x. But we can rewrite that 4 times 9 as 36. So 4x plus 36 is what we're going for here. Okay. I find it very helpful to use my pencil to draw those what I would call rainbows to signify who you're multiplying together. So 4 is getting multiplied times x, 4 is getting multiplied times 9, and then you've kept track of how many products you need to take. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2, we have 7 times the quantity of k minus 3. We know it's multiplication because we don't see anything in between the 7 and the k, so we assume it's multiplication. So what we have is 7 times k minus 7 times 3, okay, which we would write as 7k minus 21. And that's where we're going to stop. Okay, I know in our last lesson, some of us we wanted to keep going, but there's no equal sign. So with our combined like terms and here with our distributive property, there is not an equal sign right now. So we're just working on the simplify of it so that tomorrow, hint, hint, we can use this when we solve equations. So we're not solving right now. I'm just looking for an expression, no equal sign. Okay. Now, here's where it gets a little interesting. Let's look at example 3. Example 3, we have -3 times the quantity n minus 8. Okay, well, we're going to take -3 times n. But then we need to take -3 times 8, and we still have this subtraction in between. Okay, so this is -3n plus 24 because we have this minus a negative, which turns into plus a positive. Okay, now if you'd rather think of it this way, okay, we have -3 times n minus 8, right? So if you'd like to think of it as, hey, -3 times n is -3n. -3 times minus 8, well, since we have a negative times a negative, that's going to turn into a positive 24. Okay, so there's a couple different ways you can use your brain to process that. You do what works for you. Okay, so let's try number 4. Okay, we have the same thing happening where we have a negative number that's being multiplied to our difference here. Okay, so we know that there's multiplication right here because there's nothing in between the -2 and the parentheses. So I am going to take -2 times 5x minus -2 times 2. So this is going to become -10x. And this is going to become what? Plus 4. We have this -2 that we're multiplying to essentially that -2, which is how we're getting this plus 4 right here. Right? All right, so this is what's going to happen. I would like you to try number 2 and number 3. Circle your answer and then check in with your elbow partner to see if they have the same answer and patiently wait for me to go over them. Okay, if we do the distributive property in number 2, we get 5 times w and 5 times -4, so we get -20. Is this what you have? Okay, if we do number 3, we're going to take -5 times n, and be careful, we have -5 times -5, so we can think of that as negative times a negative is going to turn into plus 25. Okay, if you made a mistake, it's okay. Let's fix it. Make sure you have these two answers. Okay, what I'm going to have you do now is go to problems 7 and 8. Same thing. Do these two problems When you have them, compare your answers to a neighbor and quietly and patiently wait for me to go over them. Okay, for number 7, negative 7 times 3 is a negative 21. And then we have negative 7 times that minus 5m to give us plus 35m. Okay. Then in number 8, we're going to do 3 times 2n, which is 6n. 3 times plus 8 would give us plus 24. Okay. So this is what your job for me is. I want you all to turn to page 26. Okay. There are 2 different sets of 3 different sets of problems. Okay. Some of these problems are going to look like what we have here with the distributive property, but some of them are going to look a little bit like what we had on Friday with the combining like terms. So if there's parentheses, you need to do the distributive property. If there are not parentheses, you need to make your boxes and circles and do the combine like terms. Now what's going to happen for each set of problems, the chunk of problems on the left and the chunk of problems on the right are going to match answers, but not in the same order. Okay, so in set 1, there are 4 problems on the left, 4 problems on the right. The 4 answers will be the same, just switched around. And then the same thing when you go to set 2, set 3. So with the remainder of class, you need to work on page 26. Whatever doesn't get done in class will be your homework. Please work efficiently and at a reasonable volume. Ask for help when you need it.